The morning sun cast long shadows through the towering windows of the Marion County Courthouse, its golden rays dancing across the polished marble floors. Isabella Rodriguez pulled her Tesla into the private parking area, mindful of the time. She hadn't planned on visiting the courthouse today, but an urgent message about building inspections had disrupted her carefully planned schedule. Dressed in premium Lululemon leggings and a designer athletic jacket, she looked more ready for her planned yoga session than a courthouse visit. Her long dark hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and her makeup-free face reflected her intention for a casual day off. The Hermes briefcase in her hand, a gift from her board of directors after their latest successful project, seemed at odds with her athletic attire. The security guard, Mike Thompson, did a double take as she approached the entrance. He'd worked at the courthouse for 20 years, but had never seen the building's owner in person. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, reaching for her briefcase to put it through the scanner. "ID, please." Isabella smiled warmly, producing her driver's license. She could have mentioned who she was, could have pulled out the ownership documents she always carried in her phone, but that wasn't her style. She built her empire on hard work and humility, letting her achievements speak for themselves. The marble hallway echoed with her footsteps as she made her way to Courtroom 3B. She needed Judge Harrison's signature on several documents before the upcoming renovation phase could begin. It should have been a simple administrative task. Drop off the papers, get the signature, and head to her yoga class. But fate had other plans. Parking violation, case number 47,829. The court clerk announced just as Isabella entered the courtroom. She froze mid-step, recognizing the number from the citation she received last week. In her rush to help an elderly woman who had fallen near her car, she apparently parked in a space with confusing signage. She'd meant to have her assistant handle it, but in the chaos of managing multiple courthouse renovation projects across the country, it had slipped her mind. Judge Thomas Harrison peered down from his bench, his steel-rimmed glasses catching the light. His reputation for being fair-minded preceded him, which was one reason Isabella's company had chosen this courthouse for their latest preservation project. She appreciated judges who understood the delicate balance between tradition and progress. "Isabella Rodriguez," he called out, his tone carrying a hint of surprise at her casual attire. "Yes, Your Honor." She moved forward confidently, her posture reflecting years of boardroom presentations and high-stakes negotiations. The briefcase in her hand contained not only the building inspection documents, but also detailed plans for making the historic courthouse more energy efficient while preserving its architectural integrity. As she approached the bench, she noticed the subtle shift in the judge's expression, the all-too-familiar look she'd encountered throughout her career. The slight raise of an eyebrow, the quick glance at her athletic wear, the almost imperceptible tightening of his lips. In that moment, Isabella knew this wouldn't be the quick, simple interaction she planned for. Little did Judge Harrison know that the woman he was about to pass judgment on had transformed dozens of courthouses across America, making them more accessible and efficient while preserving their historic beauty. The same woman who, at 35, had built a billion-dollar company dedicated to revolutionizing public spaces. Judge Harrison adjusted his reading glasses, studying the parking citation with exaggerated care. The morning light streaming through the tall courthouse windows cast shadow lines across his face, making his expression appear even sterner than usual. The courtroom remained silent except for the gentle whir of the century-old ceiling fans, their brass fixtures gleaming against the ornate ceiling that Isabella's company had painstakingly restored last summer. "Ms. Rodriguez," he began, placing careful emphasis on the Ms. rather than the professional titles she'd earned. "Would you care to explain why you parked in a restricted area clearly marked for judicial staff?" Isabella took a measured breath, maintaining her composure. "Your Honor, I was arriving for a meeting when I noticed an elderly woman, Mrs. Chen, slip on the sidewalk near my car. The signage in that area has multiple overlapping restrictions, but in that moment my primary concern was providing immediate assistance." She reached into her briefcase, producing photographs of the confusing signage and a notarized statement from Mrs. Chen. The court clerk, Linda Martinez, stepped forward to collect the documents, giving Isabella a subtle look of encouragement. Linda had worked at the courthouse for 15 years and had never seen such thorough documentation for a simple parking ticket. Judge Harrison barely glanced at the evidence. Ms. Rodriguez, this court sees dozens of parking violations every week. Everyone has an excuse. Your casual attire suggests you don't take these proceedings seriously. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Court reporter Jenny Park's fingers paused over her stenotype machine as she exchanged glances with Officer Miguel Santos, who had been standing by the door. Both had served with Judge Harrison for years and had never heard him make such remarks about a defendant's appearance. Isabella stood perfectly still, her Harvard Business School class ring catching the light as she gripped her briefcase. Your Honor, I apologize if my attire offends the court. I had planned to review building inspection documents and then attend a yoga class. However, the substance of my explanation and evidence remains valid, regardless of my clothing. Building inspection documents. Judge Harrison's tone carried a hint of dismissal. And what would you know about building inspections? At that moment, James Kim, the court administrator, hurried into the courtroom clutching a folder. He approached the bench and whispered something urgently to Judge Harrison, who waved him away impatiently. Ms. Rodriguez, this court's time is valuable. The fine for your violation is $500, and I'm adding a $250 surcharge for wasting the court's time with elaborate excuses. He struck his gavel with finality, already turning toward his next case. Isabella accepted the judgment with grace, her expression neutral. As she turned to leave, she caught sight of the crumbling plaster in the corner of the courtroom, a detail noted in her company's renovation plans. The irony wasn't lost on her that the documents in her briefcase included approval forms for a $12 million restoration project she had personally championed for this very courthouse. As she walked toward the exit, Linda Martinez hurried after her. Ms. Rodriguez, I'm so sorry. Judge Harrison isn't usually like this. He's been under pressure since the budget cuts and the building's condition. Isabella gave her a reassuring smile. No apologies needed, Linda. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from unexpected moments. She glanced at her watch. She'd miss her yoga class, but the day was about to become far more interesting than a simple workout session. James Kim's fingers trembled slightly as he dialed the number for the third time. The mahogany panels of his office, normally so comforting in their old-world elegance, seemed to close in around him. As court administrator, he'd handled countless difficult situations, but this one made his stomach churn. Yes, Mr. Whitman, it's about Judge Harrison and Ms. Rodriguez. He paused, listening to the State Judicial Board chairman's increasingly alarmed response. No, sir, he doesn't know yet. Yes, sir, I tried to tell him during the hearing, but he loosened his bow tie, a nervous habit from his law school days. Through his office window, he watched Isabella Rodriguez walking across the courthouse plaza, phone in hand. Even from this distance, her purposeful stride conveyed authority. A group of architects and contractors respectfully parted to let her pass, clearly recognizing the CEO, whose vision had revolutionized historic courthouse preservation across the country. A knock at his door made him jump. Judge Harrison entered without waiting for a response, still in his judicial robes and wearing an irritated expression. Kim, what was so urgent that you had to interrupt my courtroom? I have a full docket today. James took a deep breath. Sir, about Ms. Rodriguez, the woman you just fined. Her company, Innovative Urban Solutions, owns this building. They're funding our entire renovation project. The judge's face remained impassive. And this should influence my judicial decisions. How, exactly? No, sir, but James pulled up a browser window on his computer, turning it toward the judge. She's been featured in Forbes and Architectural Digest. Her company has restored 37 historic courthouses nationwide. The Harvard Law Review just published her article on modernizing judicial spaces while preserving their historical significance. Judge Harrison sank into a chair, his robes settling around him like deflated sails. On the computer screen, photos showed Isabella Rodriguez accepting awards, speaking at conferences, standing with Supreme Court justices. In every image, she carried herself with the same quiet dignity she'd shown in his courtroom. She requested an emergency meeting with the State Judicial Board. James continued carefully. Chairman Whitman is concerned, especially given the terms of our renovation contract. Before Judge Harrison could respond, Linda Martinez burst into the office, her usually calm demeanor ruffled. "Judge, you need to see this." She held up her tablet, showing an email from the State Supreme Court Chief Justice's office. "They're asking about this morning's hearing. Apparently, Ms. Rodriguez was scheduled to speak at their judicial conference next month about innovative courthouse design." Through the window, they watched as Isabella now stood in the plaza, surrounded by her team. She was reviewing documents, pointing at various parts of the building's facade. Her presence had transformed the space. Contractors who moments ago had been on break were now actively working, measuring, discussing. "There's more," James added quietly. "The renovation plans she brought today. They include solutions for every issue we've been struggling with. The accessibility problems, the outdated technology, even the heating system that never works properly. Her company was going to fund all of it." Judge Harrison stood abruptly, straightening his robes. "Get me everything you have on Ms. Rodriguez and her company, and see if she's still in the building." He paused at the door, his shoulders heavy. "Also find out when the next State Judicial Board meeting is scheduled." James and Linda exchanged glances as the judge left. Through the window, they could see Isabella ending her phone call, a subtle smile playing her lips. In the afternoon sun, the courthouse's shadow stretched across the plaza, as if the building itself was bowing to its remarkable owner. The afternoon sun filtered through the courthouse's stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the break room walls as a group of courthouse employees gathered around Jenny Park's laptop. The court reporter had pulled up an article from Business Insider titled "The Silent Revolutionary: How Isabella Rodriguez is Transforming America's Justice Spaces." "Listen to this," Jenny said, adjusting her reading glasses. At age 35, Rodriguez has quietly built a $2.8 billion empire focused on modernizing historic courthouses while maintaining their architectural integrity. Her company, Innovative Urban Solutions, has completed projects in 28 states, each one coming in under budget and ahead of schedule. Officer Miguel Santos whistled low. "And the judge just fined her $750? Man, that's like charging Bill Gates for downloading Microsoft Word." Linda Martinez set down her coffee cup, remembering the countless times she emailed with Isabella's team about the renovation plans. "You know what's amazing? She personally reviews every project. Those building inspection documents she brought today, she's read every page. I've seen her email threads with the architects at 3 a.m., discussing the best way to preserve the original woodwork while adding modern security features." The break room door opened, and James Kim entered, looking exhausted. He'd spent the last hour fielding calls from increasingly concerned officials. "It gets better," he said, loosening his bow tie. "Remember last month when that elderly couple couldn't make it up the courthouse steps, and someone paid for a temporary ramp installation? That was her company. They did it anonymously." "But why didn't she just tell the judge who she was?" asked Jenny, scrolling through more articles. "Look at these accomplishments. Graduated top of her class from Stanford Architecture, got her MBA from Harvard, won the National Historic Preservation Award 3 years running." Miguel leaned against the counter, shaking his head. "My cousin works security at the Seattle courthouse," he said when they discovered a family sleeping in their car outside the courthouse before a hearing. Rodriguez had her company partner with local organizations to create a support program for people traveling for court appearances. Never took credit for it. Through the break room window, they could see Isabella in the courthouse garden, sitting on a bench she personally designed to accommodate people with mobility issues. She was on a video call, likely with her team of architects and historians who worked tirelessly to blend modern accessibility with historical preservation. You want to know the real kicker? James added, pulling up an email on his phone. The renovation plans she brought today include a state-of-the-art heating system that would cut our energy costs by 60%, plus improved acoustics in the courtrooms, better disability access, and a daycare center for people attending court sessions, all funded by her company. Linda walked to the window, watching Isabella end her call and stand up, taking a moment to help a young mother navigate the stroller ramp, another of her company's subtle improvements. You know what impresses me most? She's never once used her position as the building owner to demand special treatment. She gets her visitor badge every time, goes through security like everyone else. Well, Jenny said, closing her laptop, Judge Harrison's about to learn what real power looks like. Not the kind that comes from sitting on a bench in a black robe, but the kind that comes from quietly making the world better, one courthouse at a time. Just then, their phones buzzed simultaneously. An email notification about an emergency all-staff meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. The subject line read, Special announcement from the State Judicial Board regarding Marion County Courthouse renovation project. James checked his watch. Anyone want to bet how our judge is feeling about that $750 fine now? The State Judicial Board conference room hummed with nervous energy. 7 board members sat around the gleaming walnut table, their leather chairs creaking occasionally as they reviewed the documents before them. Chairman Robert Whitman checked his Rolex for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. At precisely 2:00 p.m., Isabella Rodriguez entered, her business attire a stark contrast to her earlier athletic wear. She carried the same Hermes briefcase, but now it held detailed presentations rather than just building inspection documents. Behind her walked Marcus Chen, her company's chief innovation officer, carrying a sleek laptop. Thank you for accommodating this meeting on such short notice, Isabella began, her voice warm but professional. She hadn't changed into formal attire to impress them. She'd had a scheduled presentation to potential investors afterward. The fact that she kept her yoga wear during the court hearing spoke volumes about her authenticity. Judge Harrison sat at the far end of the table, his usual confidence noticeably diminished. He watched as Marcus efficiently set up their presentation, the large screen coming to life with a stunning 3D rendering of the Marion County Courthouse. Ladies and gentlemen, Isabella continued, I'm here today not to complain about a parking fine, but to discuss something far more important, the future of our judicial spaces. She clicked to the next slide, showing before and after images of courthouses her company had transformed across the country. In Seattle, we reduced wait times by 40% through improved space design. In Boston, our renovations cut energy costs by 65%. In Austin, our childcare facilities helped reduce missed court appearances by 30%. Each statement was backed by clear, compelling data visualizations that Marcus smoothly navigated through. Chairman Whitman leaned forward, his expression intense. Ms. Rodriguez, your company's achievements are remarkable, but today's incident raises concerns about the Marion County project. Isabella smiled, clicking to a new slide. Actually, this morning's experience reinforced exactly why our work matters. A courthouse shouldn't be intimidating. It should be accessible, efficient, and fair. She pulled out a folder. These are the updated renovation plans I was bringing to submit this morning. They include, for the next 20 minutes, she walked them through her vision. Solar panels hidden behind historic facades, elegant ramps disguised as architectural features, state-of-the-art security systems that wouldn't detract from the building's character. The board members found themselves nodding along, occasionally making appreciative notes. But the most important renovation, she said, her voice softening slightly, isn't about the building at all. It's about perception. She gestured to the original courthouse blueprints from 1923. This building was designed to intimidate, to remind people of authority. I believe we can preserve its history while making it welcoming to everyone, regardless of what they're wearing, who they are, or why they're here. Judge Harrison's pen had stopped moving. He sat still, looking at the plans that would transform his courthouse into something both magnificent and accessible. The irony of his earlier dismissiveness hung heavy in the air. "I'm not asking for any changes to this morning's ruling," Isabella concluded, gathering her materials. "The fine stands. I've already paid it. What I am asking is that we move forward with these renovations as planned. The people who use this courthouse deserve nothing less." As she turned to leave, Chairman Whitman stood up. "Ms. Rodriguez, one moment. I believe we should discuss expediting these renovations, and perhaps some additional improvements to other courthouses in our district." Isabella paused at the door, sharing a quick glance with Marcus. They'd anticipated this response. It wasn't the first time her company's quiet competence had opened new doors. "I'd be happy to discuss that, Chairman. My team already has some initial concepts drawn up." The Daily Herald's headline glowed on Judge Harrison's iPad. "Innovation meets justice. How one CEO is quietly revolutionizing America's courthouses." His morning coffee sat untouched as he scrolled through the article in his chambers, the words blurring together yet somehow burning into his memory. Among Innovative Urban Solutions' most striking achievements, he read, is their commitment to making justice accessible to all. CEO Isabella Rodriguez's latest project, the Marion County Courthouse renovation, promises to set new standards in judicial space design. A knock at his door interrupted his reading. "Come in," he called, already knowing who it would be. James Kim entered, carrying a thick folder and wearing an expression that mixed concern with barely concealed excitement. "Sir, the press requests are piling up," James said, placing the folder on the judge's desk. "CNN, MSNBC, even architecture magazines. They all want to know about the renovation project." He paused carefully. "And about yesterday's hearing?" Judge Harrison swiped away from the article, revealing his email inbox flooded with messages from other judges nationwide. Many had worked with Isabella's company on their own courthouse renovations. Their messages shared a common theme. They'd all experienced her remarkable ability to transform not just buildings, but the entire atmosphere of justice. "There's more," James continued, pulling up a video on his tablet. This went viral overnight. The security footage showed Isabella helping an elderly couple navigate the courthouse stairs yesterday afternoon, just hours after her hearing. She'd spent 20 minutes assisting them, then made several calls. This morning, a temporary mobility ramp had appeared, donated anonymously. "The public response has been overwhelming," James added, showing social media posts praising Isabella's grace under pressure and her company's track record of improving public spaces. "People are calling it a masterclass in professional dignity." Through his window, Judge Harrison could see construction teams already at work, efficiently upgrading the courthouse's entrance while carefully preserving its historic features. Isabella stood among them, hard hat on, reviewing plans with her architects. Even from this distance, her enthusiasm for the work was evident. "Judge," James said softly, "Ms. Rodriguez's office sent over an invitation." He placed an elegant envelope on the desk. "She's giving a keynote speech at the National Judicial Conference next month. The topic is Modernizing Justice, where architecture meets accessibility." Before the judge could respond, Linda Martinez rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. "Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." She held up her phone showing a live feed from the courthouse plaza. Isabella was giving an impromptu tour to a group of architecture students, explaining how historical preservation could coexist with modern accessibility needs. "She's not just designing buildings," Linda said, her voice filled with admiration. "She's redesigning how people experience justice." Judge Harrison stood up, straightening his robes. Through the window, he watched Isabella point out various architectural features to the students, her passion evident in every gesture. The contrast between her expertise and how he dismissed her yesterday sat heavy in his stomach. "James," he said finally, "please clear my afternoon schedule. I need to draft a few important emails." He picked up the conference invitation, running his fingers over the embossed lettering. "And find out if Ms. Rodriguez has time for a meeting tomorrow. I believe I owe her more than just an apology. I owe her my full support in making this courthouse truly accessible to everyone. The morning sun caught the courthouse's freshly cleaned windows, and for the first time, Judge Harrison noticed how the light created perfect squares on his chamber floor, an architectural detail Isabella had probably planned to enhance in the renovation. He smiled slightly, realizing he had a lot to learn about looking beyond first impressions. The National Judicial Conference buzzed with anticipation as Isabella Rodriguez took the stage. The grand ballroom of the Washington Plaza Hotel was packed with judges, architects, and legal professionals from across the country. In the front row, Judge Harrison sat next to Professor David Zhang from Stanford Law, both ready to participate in the panel discussion that would follow. Innovation in courthouse design isn't just about buildings, Isabella began, her voice carrying clearly through the state-of-the-art sound system her company had installed. It's about breaking down barriers, both physical and psychological. Behind her, slides show the remarkable transformation of the Marion County Courthouse over the past month. Judge Harrison watched intently, remembering how his perspective had shifted since that fateful morning. He'd spent the past month working closely with Isabella's team, learning how thoughtful design could make justice more accessible. His initial embarrassment had transformed into genuine enthusiasm for the changes taking place. Last month, Isabella continued, clicking to a new slide. A simple parking ticket taught me something valuable. She smiled warmly at Judge Harrison. Sometimes the greatest opportunities for growth come from unexpected challenges. The audience murmured appreciatively as she shared before and after photos of the courthouse entrance. The new design seamlessly integrated ramps with the classical architecture, making the building welcoming to everyone while preserving its historic dignity. During the panel discussion, Judge Harrison spoke candidly about his own transformation. Ms. Rodriguez helped me understand that true justice isn't just about making the right legal decisions, he explained. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels respected and heard. Professor Zhang added his insights about the psychological impact of courthouse design. What's remarkable about the Marion County project is how it's changing the culture of the court itself. Staff report a 40% increase in positive feedback from visitors. In the audience, James Kim and Linda Martinez beamed with pride. Their courthouse had become a model for others across the country. The child care center Isabella had included in the renovation was already helping dozens of families attend their court dates without worry. After the formal presentations, Isabella led a workshop on inclusive design. Judges from various districts gathered around tables, examining plans and sharing experiences. Judge Harrison found himself naturally gravitating toward a mentorship role, sharing what he'd learned about seeing beyond first impressions. The real breakthrough, he explained to a group of interested colleagues, came when I started attending Ms. Rodriguez's morning staff meetings. Watching her interact with everyone, from architects to maintenance staff, showed me what true leadership looks like. Isabella, overhearing this, smiled as she remembered those early morning meetings. Judge Harrison had shown up every day at 7 a.m., eager to learn and contribute. His insights about court operations had actually improved several aspects of the renovation plans. The workshop concluded with an announcement that made the room buzz. Innovative Urban Solutions would be launching a nationwide initiative to assess and upgrade courthouse accessibility. Judge Harrison had been asked to chair the advisory committee. This partnership represents the future of judicial spaces, Isabella concluded, standing beside Judge Harrison at the podium. When we combine legal expertise with innovative design, we create something remarkable, courthouses that truly serve everyone. As they left the stage, Professor Zhang approached them with an intriguing proposal. The Stanford Law Review is planning a special issue on architectural innovation in judicial spaces. Would you both consider co-authoring the lead article? Judge Harrison looked at Isabella, who nodded encouragingly. I'd be honored, he said, realizing how far he'd come from that morning when he dismissed her based on her athletic wear. After all, I've learned that the best insights often come from unexpected teachers. 1 year later, the Marion County Courthouse gleamed in the morning sun, its restored facade a perfect blend of historical grandeur and modern accessibility. The plaza buzzed with activity as people gathered for a special ceremony marking the completion of the renovation project. Isabella Rodriguez stood at the newly designed podium, which accommodated speakers of all heights and abilities. She wore running shoes with her elegant suit, a small detail that made Judge Harrison smile as he sat among the distinguished guests. The image reminded him of how far they'd both come since that memorable morning. Today isn't just about celebrating a building, Isabella began, gesturing to the courthouse behind her. It's about celebrating a transformation in how we think about justice spaces. The crowd, including representatives from courthouses nationwide, nodded in agreement. The changes were evident everywhere. Elegant ramps flowed seamlessly into the grand staircase, solar panels peeked discreetly from behind restored cornices, and a state-of-the-art childcare center hummed with activity in what was once unused storage space. Judge Harrison approached the podium next, adjusting the height with appreciation for its thoughtful design. "Last year, I made a judgment based on appearances," he admitted, his voice carrying across the plaza. "Today, I'm proud to say that experience led to the most valuable learning of my career." He gestured to the courthouse's new features. "Our wait times have decreased by 50%. Court attendance has improved by 35%. But most importantly, people tell us they feel respected when they enter these doors, regardless of who they are or why they're here." The ceremony continued with the unveiling of a new plaque. Rather than celebrating any individual, it commemorated the collaborative effort that had transformed the building. Marcus Chen, now promoted to Chief Operations Officer at Innovative Urban Solutions, demonstrated the courthouse's new virtual tour system designed to help visitors navigate the space confidently. Linda Martinez wiped away happy tears as she watched families entering the courthouse through various accessible entrances. The child care center she now supervised had become a model for courts nationwide. Even James Kim had found a new passion, heading a committee on modernizing judicial spaces while preserving their historical significance. After the ceremony, Isabella led a small group through the building. In the main hall, she paused by a subtle design element in the floor tiles, a pattern that helped visually impaired visitors navigate the space while adding to the building's beauty. "This is my favorite feature," she said. "It shows how accessibility and aesthetics can work together perfectly." Judge Harrison's chambers, once a fortress of traditional authority, had been transformed into a welcoming space where lawyers and clients could meet comfortably. The walls now displayed both historical courthouse photographs and images of recent community outreach programs. As the tour concluded, a young law student approached Isabella and Judge Harrison. "I read your Stanford Law Review article about transforming judicial spaces," she said excitedly. "It inspired me to pursue both law and architectural design." Isabella and the judge exchanged knowing looks. Their co-authored article had sparked a movement, with law schools nationwide now offering courses on accessible justice design. The Marion County Courthouse had become a case study in how physical spaces could influence the very nature of justice. The day ended with a quiet moment as Isabella and Judge Harrison stood in the courthouse garden. A family passed by, their child rolling easily along the smooth paths that wound through the historic space. "You know," Judge Harrison said, watching the family, "sometimes the best view of justice comes from a completely new perspective." Isabella smiled, adjusting her running shoes. "And sometimes," she replied, "the most powerful changes start with a simple parking ticket." Above them, the restored courthouse clock chimed 5, its sound carrying across the plaza, a perfect harmony of history and progress, ringing in a new era of accessible justice.